Good day, everyone. Steve Wyss here, and I'm joined by the enigmatic Simon Holden, as he was described in the YouTube description today. And the shock is on at the Etihad. Manchester City 0, Manchester United 1 at half-time. First of all, Simon, hope you're doing well. What's the news with you?
Yeah, great. Bigger shock than me being called enigmatic, really. That first strike. I mean, Marcus Rashford. I think there's talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's done two of the clumsiest things I've ever seen in a first half of football match from a striker, where he got through one-on-one, didn't even really get to the goal. It came off his, well, I don't like to say it came off his ankle because I get laughed at. Probably came off his head. And then another one where he nearly fell over. But what a strike, Steve. And the shock is on.
Well, it's goal of the month already, isn't it? We're only, 2 days into the month. It's going to be a goal of the season candidate. I mean, it's no surprise what's happened since. I mean, the metrics are crazy for Manchester City. I mean, the first question, and everyone's on everyone's lips, do you now back Manchester City? They've outshot United 18-2, XG of 2.73 for Man City in the first half, but they couldn't score. Now, in terms of the odds, minus 122 with Bet Rivers, Manchester City on the money line to win this match. Basically, the question is that a play or is it a lay for you, Simon?
It's a play. And I tell you why. Not only of the metrics of this particular game, but let's think about those stats when Man City keep going behind. I mean, the halftime team talk, you think Nigel Seeley's got a bad temper, Steve. You want to hear how he's going to be getting at the boys in blue there. I think they're a great bet. I really do. It was a fantastic goal, but I think reality is going to bite. I mean, we just spoke then about Haaland. He's missed an absolute sitter. And he's had another header that he's headed over from about 6 yards. And he's the shocked look of a man who's never seen a football before. Surely that can't continue. And there are other people. I mean, it's going to be all hands on deck for Man United. I just don't see them keeping them out. I could see City winning this 3-1. I think they're a play, Steve. I don't know about you.
At the minute, I'm not sure I'll be playing them because they don't look quite right to me. This reminds me very much of the Chelsea game where they fell behind in the first half. They had to come back.
Yeah.
And eventually they got a draw, but they left it too late. Manchester United are going to sit in. This is their, one of their biggest remaining games this year. It's a local derby. I watched the Premier League show and Nigel Seeley and Jack Wright had a really good discussion about this. Nigel's on under 3.5 goals in the game, which the moment I think he'd probably take it, actually. I don't think he expected Man United to necessarily score, but, only one goal in the first half. The 2-1 score to Man City is very much in play, isn't it? That could be what's probably the most likely outcome at the end of the day. Erling Braut Haaland, minus 148 to score in running. There's only one half of football remaining here. Would you back that one, Simon? Because he is the most likely man to hit the back of a net. He's on penalties, and there's going to be loads of people betting on him. But that just doesn't scream value to me either.
I think maybe the value has been squeezed out of that like the last orange in the jar, isn't it? I mean, he's not the only likely scorer, is he? I mean, you can sort of see that there's going to be 4 or 5 Man City players on the edge of the area for about 44 minutes of the next 45. So it doesn't have to be him. They obviously play through him, but the side of me that's just seen him says no, but the side of me that's seen him for 2 years says yes, of course he'll score. So I think he will score. I've changed my mind. I think he will score, and I still think 3-1. If they get 2-1, obviously United are going to have to come out and play, aren't they? And you can see like a bit like the West Ham thing where the team nicks it in the last minute with another to make it 3-1. So, yeah, Haaland to score, that's just probably a smidgen of value, but certainly Man City are a play.
Good afternoon, Paul Laguna. Hope you're doing really well. Benjamin Chukuma as well. Welcome to the show. Welcome to everyone. Do feel free to ask us some questions about anything, really. We will do our best to answer. You've actually reminded me there, Simon, the player who actually equalised, of course, against Chelsea was Rodri. And he's plus 600 to score. I mean, they might have to take a pot shot from the edge of the area And plus 600, that might be the bet that I go on. It's interesting that there's no cards yet in the game.
I'll tell you who seems to be lively for them in the last couple of games I've seen. Old Doku, the old Star Wars character, Count Doku. He seems to be having a shot every 2 or 3 minutes. Most of them nearly went past my front window, to be fair. But he seems to be quite an offensive.
Well, he's a lively player, isn't he? He's something different.
Yeah.
He offers Manchester City something different. And, I think he's sometimes stuck in his mindset, whether he wants to be the creative man or whether he wants to have a go himself. And he would have a go himself at some of his previous clubs, no doubt. But at the City, he's more expected to supply the goals. No cards yet. Over 3.5 cards is -167 with Bet Rivers. I think that's a little bit short, even though the second half should be full of cards. The player I want to back, and Bet Rivers are not actually offering this, maybe somewhere else you could get him, is the goalkeeper for Man United. I think he's prime for a card in this game, especially the longer it stays 1-0 or 1-0. I mean, he's already time wasting dramatically, and there's been a bit of a focus on goalkeepers, hasn't there, this weekend about a new rule that might come in, or they might trial something next season or whatever. So I'd be looking at that. I mean, look, gun to my head, what am I going to say for the final score? I would say 2-1 to Manchester City as well. So I can't really knock anyone who would be getting on City, and I guess it gets to a certain stage in the game. We're going to be live on air through most of the second half, so we'll see how it progresses. There's a couple of other games I've got my eye on at the moment in Europe. Rennes against Lorient, and we need goals in this game, Simon, because our European show, I have backed both teams score yes, and James Easton has took over 2.75. We need some goals. It's goalless at the moment. Right. There's been some chances. It's not as wide open as I wanted it to be, though. So I think it is an in-running 27 minutes in. I would be not really touching it in either direction right now. And there's a match in Germany that has just kicked off. And this is another game that I want goals in. I took over 3 Asian before the game. I think the kickoff line was 3.25. Hoffenheim against Werder Bremen. If we get an early goal in the Hoffenheim game, then I think it could kick off into something stupid.
Just to say, Steve, for anybody thinking of backing the bookings in the second half, I think for a Manchester derby, it must be a record. Was it 24 minutes before the first free kick? Yeah,
and that's Manchester United kept the discipline really well in that first half. We've got to say. Now, whether they can do it, that they come under significant pressure there. The longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be for players to time their challenges and not do something really dirty. So that's why the card line is still 3.5, 4.5, even though there's not been a card. But the books aren't stupid. Bet Rivers are not silly. They're not going to give away free money that often. So you've got to make a decision on that. Benjamin asks, can Hoffenheim beat Werder Bremen? I'm expecting them to, completely expecting a home win here, but you can't trust them, Benjamin, because they always concede too many goals. So yeah, Hoffenheim are the sort of team you want to be getting involved with the goals market rather than the money line, in my personal opinion. But hopefully there'll be some 4 minutes in. It's still 0-0, but hopefully we can get some goals in that game. And Manchester derby second half has just kicked off. This is a reaction show, and we've got plenty to react from the weekend. And I think we will start at the bottom of the table, Simon, because it involves your club, Everton. The last time you were on, you were absolutely spot on, weren't you, about that draw in the Palace game? And you said how bad they looked, and I agree with you. Now I think things are not going well for Everton, and even when they play well, like yesterday, they're not finishing the chances. Too many missed opportunities. They're racking up the XG numbers a lot, but I think a ton of it's from set pieces. Just your reaction you must have heard that one against West Ham, because I think you deserved something from the game, didn't you? But Soucek's banger into the roof of that has kind of broken your hearts a bit.
Well, firstly, the Moyes out chance and the whatever, you look at where the West Ham team are in the table, and he's a remarkably resilient manager. He just fights on, doesn't he, and produces these streaks of results. And then you see them sometimes, particularly at home, and they are awful. But yesterday, really classy finishing. 2 great goals. So give them the props for that. I mean, if you wanted to encapsulate Everton's season, I think yesterday was the perfect 90 minutes to do it. A lot of bluster, a lot of quite crude attacking play, and not much classiness in the last third where it really counts at this level, Steve. And yet again, afterwards, Deitch seemed to just kind of say, well, we were unlucky. And, they've been unlucky a lot of times this year. Some good news in the week with the points that we spoke last time about would they get any points back? Now they have. I think the three teams at the bottom, there's starting to be that little separation. And I think Everton might scrape clear, but it will be just, and then there's a long, hard summer of thought and tough decisions before they go into this new stadium. So, I mean, he tried Beto up front to begin with yesterday, and he took the tamest penalty you've ever seen. But to be fair to him, he then scored a good goal. So that might invigorate him a bit. And he is a talented player. But there just looks to be a nervousness in the last third there. And I think if you're looking to make money against them, the longer this streak goes on, the more pressure is on. And you know what it's like football. The longest spells without a win, when you can't score, the player's going to get more and more tense. The crowd are going to get more and more against them. And I think at home at Goodison Park, they are going to be a team you need to be looking
fade
to
them
to be against. Yeah.
So
hand on heart, this is about advising people on how to make money. That's why we're here. And I think they are very, very vulnerable at home. The classic thing away, less pressure, they may relax and may play more counterattacks, but they of all the teams in the Premier League, apart from Burnley and Sheffield United, they look to have the least options up front, and that has got to worry you.
You said on the last reaction show that in terms of the points, they were sort of preparing for the worst, but you did say there was a good chance of getting some points back on the first appeal. Now, the talk is that obviously there's going to be another hearing involving Forest and Everton. The rumour I keep hearing on the grapevine is that Forest are going to get docked likely 3 or 4 points, and that Everton might get docked something similar. Again, until we know the outcomes of that, it's going to be really hard to get involved in the relegation markets. But Everton now 5-1 with some books to be relegated. Forest at 15-8. Brentford at 11-1 if you fancy that. Luton are -200 to go down. Now, I've got to be honest, I wouldn't. Loads of teams conceded late goals yesterday. We're going to talk about that soon. Luton at -200 to go down. Is that dangerous because there's still possibilities of points deductions?
Well, I think Nigel said in one of the Premier League programs that he was very wary of that market for the kind of blind betting, if you like, because you have a really strong play on Luton, and then you get up one morning and find out that Forest and Everton have been docked 6 points each. You're going to feel extremely frustrated, shall we say, if you're a Luton fan. You're having a big night out. As it stands, from what I gather, the feeling in the Everton camp is a lot more upbeat this week. Not just about the points we got back, but about the possibility of that being the only thing that happens. But, they were wrong originally. They might be wrong again. Forest, what a nightmare day they had yesterday, Steve. And will that hang heavy on them? Because they were completely...
There was a massive game coming up soon.
Yeah.
Luton Town against Nottingham Forest.
Oh, right? Massive.
Now, that comes on the back of Luton. Have got 3 games in a week. They... I think they've got a midweek fixture against Bournemouth, a game that was postponed after an hour because of the guy who had the heart attack. So that's getting replayed in the midweek, and then they host Forest. That's a huge game, and I'm almost tempted to say I wouldn't really want to get involved in these relegation markets until we know the outcome of that game, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, we have championed Luton, me and you, above anybody else I know. And I felt so sorry for them again yesterday.
I did.
And every time everybody says they're going to run out of steam, they go 2-0 down against a classy outfit and a striker who's completely on fire, and Ollie Watkins. And then they come out and just go again. Now, they ended up losing, that's true. But, I wouldn't bet against them beating Forest, and then they are in striking distance.
I think we a lot of the Luton games have the same pattern against the top clubs. And Nigel Seeley's made this very good point on the Premier League show that it often ends in heartbreak. You sometimes, I mean, Nigel's been betting for this sort of heartbreak for them, and he's profited recently. And I mean, that it's not good for your ticker, is it, as a bettor or as a fan? But there is definitely a pattern there. Now, against the more mediocre / poorer clubs, apart from the Sheffield United defeat, which I think they just collapsed because the pressure got to them too much as a favourite, they haven't been that bad. And I think they're going to be judged really on those matches around them, against teams around them. So I think we've got to wait until they play more of them teams. It feels like every Luton game that we watch, it's on TV, as you'd expect, has been at Kenilworth Road against one of the big sort of 6-7 clubs. So let's see how they are in a different dynamic, I think, with them. I'm not ruling them out to stay up because of this points thing. If there was no more points deductions, I think that the odds are about fair. They're probably about fair. But
and if you look at the running, Steve, if you look at the running, Luton have got the horror games that you're going to lose for certain already out of the way, haven't they? They've entertained the big boys at home. They've got, if they can get on a roll, they're the sort of team who you could see stringing 3 wins together. Against
I think if I had a team that if I was honestly going to bet on a team to be relegated, right? Forest for me, I don't want to get involved there because I think the price is about fair. Everton at 5-1, I actually think you could nibble that. You could nibble it.
Nibble away.
But really, for me, I still think Brentford are a team. And we talked about Brentford on a few of these shows. They're 11-1. All right, they're more likely not to go down. But I think there's all sorts of trouble at Mill there. Thomas Frank might be leaving at the end of the season. The owner, did he put the club up for sale? There's talk of that. I don't know. That would be the relegation value to me. Just a couple of questions here from Paul Laguna and also Logic. If you were travelling for the first time to the UK, what would be the stadium for you to see? And it's kind of ironic. We've just been talking about Kenilworth Road there because it often gets a lot of press because of as an away fan, you enter through someone's house, things like that. But what would be a good stadium, you think, for, I don't know, a neutral fan, I suppose?
They used to call that burglary where I was growing up, Steve, when you went through someone's house. Goodison Park, obviously, I'm kidding. If you're going to go to one stadium, you've got to go to Tottenham, whatever you think. This is the best sports stadium in the world, in my humble opinion. Anybody must go and see that stadium. It is out of this world.
That's a good call because it also hosts at least one NFL game a year, doesn't it? Maybe 2 off the top of my head. And I think it always comes up on top of like the food rankings, the spectator experience. You know, it's not cheap and it'll set you back a few quid. But I suppose, that's not a bad shout. Honestly, I think if you were I think you could go down that experience, but you could also go down a more traditional historic experience. And I'm talking lower leagues here, like a League One club or a League Two stadium. Trying to think of one off the top of my head, which is kind of not that bad. Unfortunately, a lot of them are quite run down these days. Yeah. But an old school stadium in the lower league, support them. I don't know. I'll think of something before the end of this reaction show. Barnsley, I mean, you know, something like that's got a good atmosphere to it.
Oh, fantastic.
I was going to say my own club, Harrogate Town, but it's not, unfortunately, very appealing.
I played there.
Have you?
Yeah. There was not a good atmosphere there. The bloke with his dog wasn't in a good mood as he walked by, I tell you.
Man. So
happy days.
Yeah. So that's the relegation battle. And it's going to lead me actually into talking about what I call bad teams. And bad things happen to bad teams. There's been a goal, and it is Phil Foden, who is on the score sheet for Man City. This looks like a really good finish. He curls it into the top left corner of the net, and the fans, I mean, it was coming, obviously, because they've been under so much pressure. But I think it was going to take a bit of quality and a bit of class. And Phil Foden is, you know, one of the talents of the generation here for England. Yeah.
Well, now what do United do now,
the penalty area. This is an absolute banger. Not saving this. No one's saving this.
Two great goals today.
Yeah, I mean, that's an XG of about 0.05, I reckon, if not less. It's a good central spot, but what a hit. 1-1 Man City against Manchester United. We'll give you the live odds in a couple of minutes when they've come up. But Logic suggests Stadium of Light for the spectator experience in the UK is. I've never been to it, but it's
great stadium.
got a good reputation, hasn't it? Good atmosphere when they're on song. Ray Burke asks, Atalanta -1 at 11-4. I'm not actually sure they've got late. I've not looked at that game. Bologna at home. Bologna have had a good season in Serie A. I don't know if I'd be looking at the -1, but Atalanta are in great form. Lost last week, though, for the first time in a while. Got hammered by Inter. Not really sure I'll be getting involved in that. Bologna won the last 5 straight in Serie A, so I'd probably avoid that game, Ray, to be honest with you. Looks like a difficult spot for them there. Bad teams. Bad things happen. I've always said bad things happen to bad teams, and that includes losing late, conceding last-minute goals, losing matches that they shouldn't lose, dropping points, random things having, like giving away penalties, stupid red cards, things like that. And yesterday in the Premier League, this kept happening. Everton conceded late goals. Luton did. Brentford conceded a late goal. Nottingham Forest did. It's a continual pattern here, and it made me realise. Palace as well, by the way, they were leading until, 20 minutes to go. That whole bottom 6 and 7 in the Premier League, there's some really, really poor footballing teams at this point in time. I mean, has the standard ever been worse in the bottom half?
Well, I'll tell you what, we used to always have a saying in the Premier League, it's the world's best league, and one of the reasons is because bottom can beat top at any given week, and that's what makes it so exciting. That saying for me now is futile because there's never been a bigger gap between the top 5 and the bottom 5. And good teams score late, bad teams seem to concede late. Is it tension? Is it the physical effort of keeping the better team out that they just can't quite do it? You look at Luton with the all-action style, and however fit those guys are, they've let a hell of a lot of late goals in. Everton have let a hell of a lot of late goals in. They've got an all-action style with very, very little end product a lot of the time. And is it maybe these teams are as fit, Steve, but they've used up so much effort. Although I've seen Burnley and Sheffield United a couple of times this year, and we're going to be watching them again tomorrow night, obviously, and they just strike me as an extremely poor team. I'm sorry to say that, Blades. We've got a lot of Sheffield Steel fans, but friends rather, not fans, but even they consider them a very, very poor team. And I think in them and Burnley, we've got possibly 2 of the 5 worst sides that have ever been in the Premier League.
And
they're going to concede late goals because they're bad teams.
How do we profit? Can we profit from this, Simon, from a betting perspective? Because obviously there's more time getting added on at the end of games anyway. Now we can factor that in. If we get into, say, the 80th minute, and I suppose it applies for any game in the Premier League, but especially these bad teams that we're calling that are trying to hang on for something or whatever, is it just worth simply betting against them in terms of goals against or overs, totals, late goals?
Sequences repeat. I mean, the first time I came on this show, Steve, that you were very kind to invite me on, I did say to people, I'm an Everton fan. I say it begrudgingly, Liverpool score very late goals. And I said, if you're going to bet them, hold your nerve. Go back in the video vault. Hold your nerve at 85, 86. I'm watching the cup final, and I turned around to my pals and said, I know what's going to happen here, and I am going to have a few quid on. I did the same yesterday. So, how many people were sat round at 2-2 watching Luton and Aston Villa and saying, I still expect Villa to score late and Luton yet again to concede late? Well, courage of your convictions time, isn't it? Sequences repeat. These are people do get into patterns of behaviour. Teams get into patterns of behaviour. And there's something going on with that Liverpool team now that I have not seen since the very, very best Alex Ferguson Man United team. I repeat that, Steve, what he said, find a way to win. And those 11 players or those squads took that mentality. You saw it again yesterday. I thought Forest played fantastic yesterday. And I thought Liverpool were very poor. But that doesn't change that the sequence continued. So, yeah, I mean, I suspect that if you look down at the records of teams that are letting in late goals, I watch as much Everton as I can, and I've seen it happen so many times in the last couple of years with them. So I'd struggle to bet that because it's too much emotional involvement. But with Liverpool, as I don't want them to win, if you put a few dollars on them and it comes off, it does sweeten the pill somewhat. And you know, if you sat there and you feel something's going to happen and you haven't had a bet in the game, you can still have a bet in the game in running. Certainly with Bet Rivers, the markets are updating constantly.
There's a bet I like in running in the German game, Hoffenheim against Bremen. It's there has been an early goal, but I think there's at least one more goal in this first half. I think you could take over 1.75 Asian goals in the first half at -132 with Bet Rivers. And if you really wanted to have a bit more value, over 2 Asian goals is at +135, which means if there's one more goal exactly in the first half, you get a push. Hoffenheim 1-0 up. It's end to end. There's been a lot of chances. I mean, I'm on over 3 goals here pre-game. I'm hoping I can get at least a push by half-time here, Simon. It just looks one of those halves that you just need, you know, you feel like you want to cash in on the goals because both teams don't look capable of defending. Keepers have gone really well, but I'd be looking at the first half goal line for Hoffenheim against Werder Bremen there. I did say I would update the odds on
they're up now.
running. Yeah, -200 Manchester City now to win this game. So if you did get on at half-time, straight on the money line, then you've got a bit of value there. Over 3.5 goals is at +114. That's a more interesting debate, I think, because that 2-1 obviously suits City. You said 3-1 pre-game. I could see a situation where we're entering stoppage time and it is 2-1 to Man City, and if you're on the over/under, it's all on stoppage time.
I wouldn't have thought Pep will be too pleased if it goes 2-1 and City start kicking the ball sideways, given how many late goals went on yesterday. I suspect he'll be urging them forward still. So I would go with that. Still, there's going to be more goals in here.
You think there's probably going to be in City?
The tempo of the game has gone up significantly in the second half.
They're used to this at Manchester City. They're very much used to it, and the
great teams don't panic, do they?
No, they don't. So I think at this point in time, I would be again. I've been on the fence with this game all day, haven't I? In terms of actually recommending a bet, I still don't think I have my money in this Bremen game and in the first half instead. But we were talking about Burnley, Sheffield United. There, I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to absolutely slaughter those two sides because I think they've been awful. I think they've been a disgrace to the Premier League. Burnley, I tweeted it out today, are a depressing watch. And I watched them and I'm like, am I going to fade them now in every game for the rest of the season? Because they just don't look like getting a point against anyone. No. And the thing with Burnley is they are often underpriced from what they should be because there is still a stigma of decent reputation from them from last season.
More so than the Blades, who now are priced correctly.
Yes, the Blades are, and we're going to preview this Sheffield United Arsenal game now because Arsenal are -590 with Bet Rivers to win on the money line. Sheffield United is 15-1 if you fancy them to get a win against the Gunners. I don't think I could put stolen money on Sheffield United. They are bad, like legit bad. I bet on them pre-season to finish bottom. I expected them to be bad this year because they lost their best players last summer. They got a manager who I suspected was going to be out of his depth in the Premier League. They haven't surprised me, Sheffield United. We know that Jack Wright's got a pick on this game tomorrow on the Premier League show. Check out that show. The both boys, Nigel and Jack, have a lot to say about it. Some good analysis there. Now, on the handicap, +2. There's been money for Sheffield United in the last day or two. The handicap is now +2 Asian. So if Arsenal won by exactly 2 goal margin, you wouldn't lose anything if you're on the +2 with Sheffield United. Are they going to cover that handicap, do you think, Simon? Or is there a big danger of an Arsenal blowout?
I am so strong on an Arsenal absolute Sergeant slaughter here tomorrow night that I have never been as convinced on anything. And I said to you earlier today, Steve, the worst thing for Sheffield United is the fact that this is the Monday night game and they can see the league table. They can see the horrors that went on at Notts Forest yesterday. They might get an even bigger sort of pep talk if this finishes a draw. And I just think that we talked earlier that there's 2 types of people who bet on football. There's people who look at recent form and there's people who look to swim against the tide. That's microcosm, obviously. So we've got two teams. I said the game against Everton and Crystal Palace was the team who couldn't score against the team who couldn't defend. Well, this is the game of the team who can't stop scoring against the team who can't stop conceding goals. And this Sheffield United defence has not just been found out. I mean, it's been found out and imprisoned with for life. It's been so bad. And we've seen the way Arsenal have played in the last 2-3 games. I just can't see anything other than with a league, as you pointed out, Steve, where goal difference could be vital, could be the thing that decides it. What an opportunity to rack a few up. If we know he gets them wound up, but surely he's going to be, they're going to come out like a greyhound. And I just don't think Sheffield, this team, Jack Wright got it right. This team isn't just bad. This team is awful.
Are they as bad as the Derby County team that was seen?
I would bet that Derby County team to beat these, and some of them are in the 50s now.
They are bad, though. That is the point. They are. I mean, the thing is, though, if you look at the dynamics, it's a Monday night. Now, players wherever in Europe, around the world, have been known to sometimes raise the level of their game on a Monday night because it's a one-off fixture in front of the cameras. You know, you got the public watching, whatever. And, you know, is that a potential danger? Or could it? I mean, we've seen them on TV before. They lost 8-0 to Newcastle. It was actually one of the games live on this reaction show that I had with Jack Wright that day. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'd actually lean more towards your handicap here, Simon. For those who are looking at, who like to get involved in the Asian lines, Arsenal to win by 2 goals is surely the bare minimum you would expect. You know, they could play bad and still win 2-3-0. That's how poor Sheffield United are. But I do want to say that there is that slight danger. It's not like a Saturday afternoon kickoff where it's a bit more mundane, run of the mill. It's Saturday under the lights. They might treat it as a cup final. You never know. But it's just I don't think I could stomach putting a single cent on Sheffield United for the rest of the season. And the same applies to Burnley. And when they play each other, they're going to somehow both find a way to lose. They're that bad. So that's the direction I would go in. I think there is value to be had on the goal scorers. Jack Wright makes a very good point about that. There's some extremely good odds actually out there, and in running as well.
Saka any time, didn't he? That's Jack.
Saka, yeah. I mean, Gabriel Jesus is -106 to score any time. That's a big price for any starting striker against Sheffield United. You've got Eddie Nketiah's plus money if he comes off the bench. You know, he'll probably be even bigger in running. Trossard +150, Martinelli +155, Kai Havertz +150. They've all been scoring. Arsenal have been scoring a lot of goals recently. So the value might be more in the actual goal scorers market, as Jack rightly points out. I'm going to predict. I think Arsenal win 2-0. I'm going to say 4-0 to Arsenal. Sam, I don't know about you.
I mean, I'd say there's a couple of plays. I would even play around with some small correct scores. I noticed the 45s, 45 to 1 at 6-0. I don't think that's the worst 45 to 1 shot you'll ever play. I mean, if you want something safer, surely the half-time, regular time Arsenal -175 is like finding money in the street.
A good parlay piece. Yeah, just to be winning at half-time and full-time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... both teams to score, no. I looked at that earlier.
What price is that? I mean,
-150.
Yeah, I mean, both teams score, yes, it's +115, which is probably the biggest price, one of the biggest prices you'll see all season now in the Premier League for that. But you can't back the Blades to get on the net, in the back of the net.
You know what? All the theories, Steve, and I take them all as valid. The Monday night, the cup final, the raise the game. They're playing an Arsenal team that have been running riot for the last 2-3 weeks in the Premier League. Can you think of any of these things that is going to make this Sheffield United team, which we've all said is one of the worst we've seen in the Premier League ever? Will any of these things make these players really play any better? They might have a go for the first 10, might they?
Are you saying that there's a ceiling at Sheffield United?
And I think
none of these players can actually get any better.
No.
You know? No.
We would have seen it by now in the year, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
This thing about bringing a new manager in, and he's going to change this and going to change that. I mean, we've had this discussion before when I first interviewed you about is it players or is it coaches in the modern game? I said players, you said coaches, but I'm yet to see a guy who can come in 2/3 of the season and make these people any better. Yeah, he could mess around with formations, but what formation could Sheffield United play tomorrow night that's going to keep this rampant Arsenal team out? What, one goalie and then 10 of them standing a line in front of him? That's the only one I can think of. I don't think that'd work. So I genuinely think this is going to be the massacre at Bramall Lane tomorrow night.
There's not much. Obviously, there's very, very little that you could support Sheffield United avoiding defeat. There's very, very little.
It's scoreline, isn't it? This is what we're talking about.
It's just about how many. It's about how many. Arsenal, perhaps in the past, some teams in the past might have just be happy to win 2 or 3-0, but goal difference is a thing. That's why I'd be very reluctant to be, getting involved with the Sheffield handicap.
Yeah, I think, Steve, had Liverpool not won yesterday, then, and if Man City don't win today, then that idea of Arsenal still in the Champions League, whatever, go 2-0 up, this game's safe, get a few people off. I could see that you're 2-3-0 then, but this is a different situation now. They need to win, and now that goal difference is really in play for them. If they just knock it around at 3-0 for a bit, he's going to think that's a real wasted opportunity to get some in the tank tomorrow. So I think they're going to go all out for 90.
So it's just we're continuing this theme of bad.
But hey, I've been wrong before.
We're going to continue this theme because there's some really, really bad teams, not just in the Premier League this year, but across Europe. We were talking off air about Almeria in La Liga. They've still not won a game in 27 La Liga fixtures. They've got 9 points, but they still haven't won a game. In Italy, Salernitana have only won a couple of times. In Germany, Darmstadt. Now, this is a topic of discussion after yesterday. Darmstadt, bottom of the table, got battered 6-0 at home to Augsburg. Now, I've said for weeks on this show that Darmstadt are a terrible side. And it just annoys me that I didn't actually bet against them in any form yesterday. The one day they did take a complete battering, you probably wouldn't have expected it against Augsburg. But we saw it full time, and this has been doing the rounds on social media, one of the ultra fans. And now ultra fans are a big thing in Europe. It's not a thing over in the UK. But a guy basically came on the field at the end of the game, and he was basically bollocking the team. And they let him do it as well. It was quite remarkable. And I've seen this happen in France before where the players will go to the side and they'll take a rollicking from these ultras who are not happy. And there's loads of difference of opinions out there. Some saying just it's not right. You should, fob him off, tell him to go away, just walk down the tunnel. And others are like, it's actually a better way. Fans can actually voice their frustration and stuff. I mean, imagine what Sheffield United and Burnley fans must feel like right now. They'd want to do that. I bet you almost sympathise with these ultras. And yesterday, it's still unbelievable scenes, wasn't it? Seeing that happen.
Well, I said to you, if Everton had this as a weekly thing, like half the main stand would have had a go this year. By now, there's been that many performances like that. I think it's a very negative thing to start doing because you know what modern players are like. The first call they'd be making to their agent to get them out of there. Although who's going to want to be putting in bids for any of them? But what I did see was when the camera panned back, the nearest guy to him was looking a little bit wary, shall we say, and the coach himself looked like he wanted to ring an Uber sharpish. I can understand fans' frustration, but to me, that's going a little bit far. I mean, we reminded ourselves of the Premier League moment with a great Hull City with their coach Phil Clark. And Phil Brown.
Phil
Brown. That
was it.
And so I remember it so well. I've forgotten his name. So it was half time. The Hull players were losing, which was a regular thing that year. Went to go off the field. He blocked them in the tunnel and made them sit down on the halfway line for the full 15 minutes. They went on to lose heavily, and that was the end of that. But these statements can have a bad impact on morale.
Well, they can. That concerns me now for Darmstadt because I think they could either they might miraculously in the next game they're going to have to give it their best effort, aren't they? In the first 25 minutes, they're going to come out really strong and pressurized. But if they fall behind, the same trend's probably going to happen. They're a bit crestfallen, a bit heartbroken. And that whole side that year went to absolute shambles, wasn't it? After that, the rollicking on the field. And I think what you got to remember with all these teams, look at Sheffield United last week. The two lads on the field that nearly got sent off because they were fighting amongst each other. These teams start to do stupid things and desperate things. Bad things happen to bad teams. And I just think we're in a position in Europe now where there's so many poor outfits that I think we need to be looking to fade them at any given opportunity in a realistic world. And I think you'll get...
But how demoralised are the first team squad at Sheffield United now? They've got to bed tonight. All of them knowing they're going to get beat tomorrow night deep down.
If you bet against these teams like Sheffield United, I don't know, Darmstadt, Salernitana, Almeria, if you bet on the Asian handicap line against them every week for the rest of the season, there's about, 10, 12 games left, I reckon you'll be in profit. You might lose the odd week, but...
We could get a summer league with all of them together, couldn't we? And be interesting to see who was the actual worst, to get a European champ of garbage.
Well, there's been...
My money's on Darmstadt just because that guy might come on.
Well, it was remarkable. I've seen something similar before, but not to the extent. It was a proper dressing down. They let him do it for like 2 or 3 minutes.
I thought he was going to get a blackboard out and start writing new formations down at one point.
Couldn't believe it. Did you see my cat in the background there? He's meowing at something.
Big
I think it was because Man United actually had the ball in Man City's half. So he's a bit surprised by that. Yeah. But we're still 1-1 with 12 minutes to go in this Manchester derby. It's been the same pattern, although City have been a little bit, a bit frustrated in the last 10 minutes, I think. But they're probably waiting to give it one last onslaught to try and win this game.
Yeah, they're looking a bit less polished, aren't they, than they have been recently? Like the pressure might be just starting to build a bit.
Yeah, VAR's actually getting involved here.
Yeah.
I think they were looking at potential penalty for Man United, but it's clearly Ederson has got to the ball first. Title race then, Simon. Big goal yesterday for Liverpool in, unbelievable circumstances how it happened. Did that? I looked at that moment and Núñez especially scoring it, and I'm starting to wonder: is it their year when things like that keep happening? Is that at the minute Liverpool? Yeah. Let's give you some odds at the minute. Man City generally around even money. Liverpool now 7-4 in places. Arsenal 2-1.
Yeah, no secret. I'll be extremely pleased if Arsenal win, and I still think they're the play. I could have, although I won a bit yesterday with betting Liverpool in play. I still wasn't overly joyed to see what happened. The only thing I'd say, Steve, is we talk about sequences. On one hand, we're saying the find a will to win, the cup, Carabao Cup, the late goal, the endless late goals, the Luton, going back to the Newcastle game, all the 90-plus minute wins. But is there part of you that thinks logically that has to come to an end?
Of course.
Can you keep pulling rabbits out of hats? Now, every time you think the sequence has come to an end, they go the next game and do it again. Whereas, I think Arsenal are starting to really put teams to the sword. So logic tells me if one team's winning impressively and heavily each week in this run-up, and one team's winning in injury time regularly.
Goal at the Etihad, Simon. It is 2-1. It's Foden again. I think it's Phil Foden again here. I was just getting very frustrated. I don't know how
this is just shortened for the Premier League.
Well, yeah, now they are. Phil Foden's the man. We were just saying that they were maybe ready for this final onslaught in the last 10 minutes. But Phil Foden has given Manchester City the lead. Anyone who backed them at minus 122, was it? Half-time is now looking very, very good. You could lay off and if you wanted to, but really, Man United haven't shown anything. There's
plenty of time left too for the third.
Onana could have saved this, I think, possibly.
Oh, he's very slow to go down, isn't he?
Down low. I'm not sure about that one from Onana. I think it's one he would hope to keep out. Fairly poor defending, though, to let him get in there. But it's been a real grind for Manchester United in the second half. The pressure has eventually toiled on them. I was just saying, I had no idea how there's only been one goal in this Bremen game. They've hit the post twice in the last 10 minutes to frustrate me, Simon. I just need some more goals in this game. and it's still goalless in France. So they just kicked off in the second half there now. I'm hoping for some goals very, very soon there. But yeah, title race. I think all three sides, right? City, Arsenal, Liverpool have had moments this season where you feel like it's their year. They've all had moments, haven't they? And they all will continue to have moments. I don't know. It's a difficult one. Liverpool feels like strange things are happening there because the injuries that they've been having, they've really done some dramatic stuff, and it does make me wonder. But you can't let your heart rule your head, or a better way of saying it is your emotions to rule your head.
Exactly, you can't. Yeah,
because I don't have an affinity to either of the three sides up there. I don't have any. I would prefer Liverpool to go. Well, I'm on Liverpool without Man City in the outright market, but it's not a significant bet for me. At the end of the day, I'm more of a neutral sitting on the fence, just looking at it as an observer for an exciting title race. But you're right. Look at the metrics and stuff. Arsenal have unbelievable defensive metrics. City have unbelievable defensive metrics. Liverpool wouldn't have quite the same in that capacity. So if you go on the stats and logic there, it's a toss-up between City and Arsenal and Liverpool third.
Well, Liverpool are going to have a game where the team they're playing does take the chances. That has to happen. And it'd be interesting. I mean, the Klopp factor, if it gets to the last 2-3 games, will the players haul him over the line in his last 2 or 3 games? I think they're going to be incredibly highly charged games. But you flip that by saying this is going to be such a big thing for Arsenal. If they go into the last 2 games, Stephen, 2 wins will do it. I mean, I think they learned a lot last year. All I hope is Arsenal win it, but it goes down to the last week, and we have the last week for the first time I can remember where we've got 3 options and you've got 3 screens on, and that'd be fantastic.
Oh yeah, it would be very good for the neutral, wouldn't it? It would be very.
And what it's going to be like as a betting weekend is going to be the biggest in the history of the Premier League. If we can do that, if we can get this down to the last 2 weeks, even we're going to have all sorts of fireworks, aren't we?
City piling the pressure on. They are looking for that third goal, as you said. A couple of questions here. Steve Bailey comes in. Will Lyon score 2 today? They've got a home match against Lens later on. I don't think they will, Steve. I actually think it's a tough game for them. Played midweek. Lyon in the cup, won on penalties. No extra time in that cup, must say. There is some squad doubts, and Lens just have a knack of not conceding that many goals. They've got a good goalkeeper as well. So I don't think they are going to score 2 or more, but they are in decent form. Lyon, Rich 73. Yes, Mr. Seeley certainly is sweating on his under 3.5 right now.
He's in the sauna.
Like Nigel is a master of what I call uncomfortable bets, where his ticket is put through the proper ring. Oh, Hoffenheim have scored. Come on. Hoffenheim scored a second goal right on half time. I needed that goal, Simon. I mean, I can't. Really,
I was getting worried you were going to run on the field at the end. If I
don't often celebrate because I still daren't because VAR might get involved, but I need that goal. Hopefully, he stayed on.
It's quite literally all happening.
It's all happening. There was another question that I've missed somewhere. Oh gosh, no, it's just a comment. Jaded. Yes, he does make a great point about that. But yeah, it's all happening. City looking for a third goal. It's all
piling it on now, aren't they?
This is what happens in European leagues now, Simon. With the way the matches are going, there's more start-stop with VAR, substitutions, things like that. Time added on. You almost can start a clean slate watching and betting from, say, the 75th minute onwards.
Oh, you've got a significant time left now, haven't you?
The dynamics have changed in betting even from 10 years ago. In-running possibilities, everything. So, oh, gosh, I feel like I missed something on our itinerary for today because it's been so remarkable. But
we've got tomorrow covered, haven't we? The Bramall Lane.
Yeah, we've got tomorrow. Yeah, we've got tomorrow covered. That's a really, really big game, and I've covered that match tonight. Now, I think actually I'll be looking at Lens, to be honest. It's one of those games, that Lyon game tonight, where it's probably a good watch. It's going to be entertaining, and there's going to be chances. But both goalkeepers are good. This is good. We could talk about this before we finish. Goalkeepers have been doing my head in for years. How do you factor in a match when you know there's at least 1, possibly 2 very good goalkeepers on show, even if the match is going to be quite open? I find that really, really difficult to do.
to factor in if you think they're going to be very good goalkeepers.
Do you have to factor in that you actually almost have to expect there's going to be some unusually good saves made?
Well, I think the Premier League standard of goalkeeping this year has been excellent. I mean, I know the Man United keeper's got his requisite share of howlers in. I think he's been actually. He could have maybe saved the last one, but I think he's been all right today. I tell you what, as well on that factor, what you've got to think about as well is there's never been a time in the Premier League when so many of the clubs have got 2 world-class keepers.
Yeah, there is better backup options now. Yeah, there is.
And they've got options that you're not surprised when they switch. Or I know a lot do for cup competitions and things like that. So you've got strength in depth in goalkeeping. You're always going to get your howlers at you. I don't know whether if a new guy comes in at Man U that he won't bring 2 or 3 players in, and this guy might be on his way.
Yeah, I think goalkeepers are a tricky one because I was watching the Toulouse game today. And they've got an unbelievable 18-year-old Guillaume Restes. And they are significantly overachieving defensively because of the goalkeeper. And it gets to a stage in seasons, everyone will say, oh, the XGA or the XG metrics have got to come back to the mean. But what if they don't because of genuine player quality, or like an individual quality? Maybe they're just having the season of their life. And I tend to try and avoid these matches and involving these keepers now because it does kind of do my head in. Hussein Haji asks, are Rennes going to score? Well, I hope so, and I hope that Lorient do as well. I'm watching this game, Hussein, and I think the most likely outcome is probably Rennes to win 1-0 from this point in time. They do look the better side. You've got to feel that they will find a way to break down Lorient. Bottom 3, of course, Lorient under pressure, but it's a local derby. It's a day of derbies, isn't it? And you just never know with them. But Rennes should score. Don't know. I don't think I'm going to get my both teams score. Yes, to cash in this one though. It's still time.
That might give you indigestion, Steve, if that's a tight game.
I just want a goal. Just
he got it eventually. Yeah.
It's well, if you got both teams score, you just want a goal at some point.
Oh yeah.
So you can cheer on the other team because at this point in time, it's just not happening. But I'm in a much better position with the Hoffenheim game. 2-0 at half-time. 1 more goal in the second half for me. And I will push in that. And I cashed with the first half line. I really needed that second goal because it was doing my head in when chances were getting missed and the post was getting hit and all that lot of stuff. But, yeah, I mean, that's going to be it for the live reaction show today. Simon, how you went? I heard you were away last week. You had a good holiday.
Research and recuperation, I like to call it. Yeah, a bit of a tan, the sun on me there. Or is it?
I heard you on the golf course.
Yes, I was. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
I think you were.
Yeah, in between Premier League study, I did play a few holes. Yeah,
I wasn't so well. I was just saying on the European show this week. I was been on antibiotics this week. Had infected elbow of all things.
Really? The old Spanish arm?
Yeah, Sunday, Monday, my arm was terrible. It's a long story how it happened, but I felt a bit like Sean Calvert on the show telling Dan Roebuck and that about it. But
this is going to be sponsored by the NHS, isn't it? Or the health service crisis line, the show.
Yeah, I'm getting older. I mean, you are as well. What are you? You're knocking on the years now. But,
I'm not so sure I am. I think I'm maybe. That you can get these pills that slow it down. I think I've taken too many.
I'll tell you, there's types of bets that can put years on your life.
Oh yeah.
There's types of bets that can maybe put years back on your life if you're enjoying it so much. There is 8 minutes, and it happens every time. 8 minutes added on as Manchester City come forward. De Bruyne with a shot, and it's just wide. It's just wide. The under 3.5 backers were really nervous there. I thought that was heading towards the top corner from De Bruyne.
Yeah, I did for my 3-1. At the end of the day, Steve, as a wise man once said, this game is all about winners. You can dress up your system.
Oh my God, Lorient should have scored as well. And Lorient have scored.
Oh.
A shock goal.
A shock goal.
This is an unbelievably bad piece of goalkeeping.
What were we saying?
Shocking piece of goalkeeping from Steve Mandanda, a legend, an absolute legend of the game. Steve Mandanda has absolutely just pawned one out. I can't believe this mistake. It's completely against the run of play. They don't really deserve it. But FC Lorient are on for a shock result here against Rennes. And that's the goal I wanted. That's the goal I needed, because I think that they're the team that were most likely not to score. So now they have got on the score sheet. Rennes can probably batter them in the last. I mean, there's going to be offside checks here, by the way. I'm not banking on this yet. There's a couple of tight calls. So we might be drawing lines and all sorts of things. But
we've got 5 minutes left with this extra time.
Oh, no. There's been a goal. And it is Haaland.
And it is 3-1, folks.
Erling Haaland has finished. And Manchester City 3-1. Looks like your correct score might come in here, Simon.
At this rate,
maybe
I'll
more.
Be back.
There's still 5 minutes left. 6 minutes left.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Steady on now, City. Get some subs on. Let's slow it down.
Oh, my goodness me. I mean, this is what I do sympathise with the under back. I think under was actually a good bet here. In terms of the line did look high, but there's so many minutes added on now. It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, I did say if it got to 2-1, he'd force them on, didn't he? And
he isn't sitting back for the 2-1.
No,
that's the problem.
It was not going to happen.
Yeah, 3-1. Erling Haaland. Eventually, when I come off here now, there's going to be tweets around relieved that Haaland scored, because so many people bet on him anytime.
Well, we did say take it, because I think I said historically he's done so much. Block out what you saw in the first half from him, which was a bizarrely awful performance. This could be exactly what he needs confidence-wise now.
Yeah,
he scored a goal in the derby to seal it. If he's been short of, even the great players go on bad runs, get short of confidence. This could, if he gets firing like we know he can, Steve, that's like signing a new striker.
It was a good finish. It was a good finish from Haaland.
It was quite a finish. Left foot,
and that's what he's got in his locker. He's missed easier chances, and he might be looking for more here. Manchester City. I mean, what was the handicap here? Was it plus? What was that? Plus 1.5? Man United would have been +2, maybe. No, they wouldn't have been a +2, would they?
No, 1.5.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look back at that. But I mean, I'm going to say if it was, a really big handicap, then there would have been some handicap bettors sweating as well there now. But that will do for this show. It's been a pleasure to have you on board.
Pleasure for me,
Simon,
as
always. We had a good hour of this today, actually. So do hit that like button if you've enjoyed the show. Leave a comment whether you're watching live or on demand, and let us know if there's any suggestions you want for this live show and stuff. Hopefully, some of you have listened to Simon there at half time on the Haaland bet, on the City bet, the bet on Bremen at half time. And, we move to next week. I don't know who's down the road. It's going to be either Neil Channing or Nigel. So you join us. It'll be a similar time next week.
Either will be great.
Well. There's a big, really, really big game next Sunday. Do you know what it is? Liverpool against Manchester City.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be watching.
Probably about as big as it gets.
Yeah,
for the Premier League for the rest of the season. So there's going to be a lot of betting. It might be the most bet game in the whole Premier League of the season, this one.
Definitely.
Next weekend. So good luck whatever you're taking in that, Simon. Pleasure having you on as always. Take care, y'all. Thanks everyone who watched. Thanks for your comments and stuff. Do take care and bet responsibly. Goodbye.